Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's EBC. We're at a beautiful cornfield on a Friday morning in western Scott County thinking about Matthew 11. And these verses are 16 through 19 and 25 through 30. And there's some really beautiful tension, if I can say that, in these verses. But I'm going to start with the easy part. It's 25 to 30. This is a really lovely spot in the scriptures where Jesus is talking about the fact that when we're weary, when we're tired and we need help, we can come to Jesus, right? And he tells us that as he teaches us, he's going to take away our burdens. And then he ends it with, his yoke is easy and his burden is light. And I'm thinking about that picture when I look at this pristine cornfield. His yoke is easy and his burden is light. So we're looking at it and it just looks like it kind of has been doing its own thing here, right? It's just growing all by itself. But now I want to pause for just a moment and think about some of the other things that we've been talking about Jesus in the last several weeks. Jesus doesn't always describe coming to Jesus as being easy or being something that was light work. Right? Sometimes we hear Jesus saying, you're going to have to drop everything to follow me. You're going to need to give up all your possessions to follow me. I'm going to put you father against son and daughter against mother, things that are really hard. And so what's happening here as we think about that, right? Well, think about this cornfield for just a moment here. That before there was corn on this cornfield, there was a farmer here doing a lot of hard work, sowing these seeds and making sure that they grew. And we can think about that a little bit as what Jesus is talking about. It's both things, right? It's both hard work and it's easy. We have those moments where we really need to apply ourselves to doing what Jesus has asked. And yet at the same time, then we have those opportunities where we can say that we are resting, our soul is just growing and being held by Jesus. And so there's a chance to look for those two things. Now, there's another piece to this scripture in 16 through 19. And this is an analogy that Jesus is drawing here. And it's a little hard to follow at first, so bear with me for just a second here. Jesus is talking about the fact that he's describing the children of the age. And by the way, scholars love to debate about what Jesus is talking about when he says the children of this age or this generation. Let's just assume for a moment that we're not picking on Pharisees in this particular scripture for a second. Let's just assume that we're talking about all of us, right? Jesus talks about this as though when someone is playing a flute and people aren't dancing with that person, or when someone is mourning and people aren't mourning with those people, that's what the children of this age are like. We're pausing for a moment, we're thinking, what are we talking about here? But then Jesus is more specific about a contrast that he had between John the Baptist, who came just before Jesus and was declaring that Jesus was on his way, and then Jesus. And Jesus says, look, when John the Baptist came, he didn't eat and you called him a demon. Then when I came, I ate and I spent time with sinners and you called me a glutton. And it really talks about the fact that we have a capacity as humans in our everyday lives to see the worst in things, right? To see even Jesus and think, okay, well, there's something wrong with that. And Jesus is asking us to see the best in things instead. And I actually think that relates back to what we're talking about with something like this cornfield, right? What do we see when we see a cornfield like this? Do we see that awful hard work that went into getting this cornfield this far, or the hard work that's coming when it tassels and then all the corn is there and it has to be harvested and all those things happen? Or do we see these moments on a Friday morning where we can take a minute and just see the beautiful picture of this corn, the gift that God has given us? And I think that's what Jesus is talking about here, is be prepared to see those moments of peace where the yoke is easy and the burden is light. This week, everybody, have a great time finding that moment of peace. Have a great week.